Recording. All right, guys. I'll give you a second for people to hook in. I told people that we'd be doing this. All right. Vince Supranowitz, Davi Barker, immigration. All right, here we go.
So let me.
What?
I want to present what I think is your claim, and you can tell me if that's what you're saying.
Yeah, no, you guys can do whatever you want for the next hour. We don't have commercial interruption. Now we can actually just relax and just do it. We don't have other issues. I don't have time constraints. I don't have, Ben's a friend, you're a friend. I just want to we're going to discuss it. Here we go.
So is your claim...
we got to start first.
Oh,
Hold
sorry,
on.
I thought that's what go meant.
Now I got to plug in, because we're doing recording. All right, let me restart the recording. We got the stream going. You guys ready? All right, here we go.
Declare your independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Undefeated, here and declare your independence. I am, we had the opportunity. We had Davi Barker in the first hour. We're just yakking it and some work that we're doing. And we have addressed immigration, and we've done it with, the right to travel, the consent of the traveler, what the Crown does this and how and they get in the middle of, and I got no use for that. But I have two people that I respect and a lot, and their opinions and their minds work really well and have big influences on me, and certainly Vince Supranowitz from early 90s. I mean, I've known Vin for a long time, and he's a good hardcore libertarian, the man we need, and less government, and probably more open border back then than he is now. Now, one of the articles that he wrote, it said, no, Americans are not, fearful of whatever. And Davi said, oh, yes, they are. So that's what started it, and he wanted to express himself. So this is a good opportunity for the site and for the audience and so on. We'll put it up, and we'll have this discussion. The discussion is, one, do you even have borders? Two, you got a country, and if you're going to have a country, you got a border. What other countries are doing, I'm not really concerned with, but, it's a good thing to know. And we have, it's a crisis for a lot of people, and what to do about it. So I'm wanting to make sure that we, calmly, we got to get all, worked up here. But, I want everybody to express themselves. We don't have a commercial interruption, and hopefully not too much or any interruption. So, Davi, I'll go ahead and start off with you. You go ahead and give what you think Vin's position is, and then he'll say whether it is or not and defend it or whatever. Is that cool with you, Vin?
I don't know, Doug.
I don't know. Let's find out. All right, well, let's see how well he does.
Well,
all right, go.
I'm going to say what I think I hear you saying, and I just want you to tell me if I'm right, if this is your claim, and if I'm not, what do I have wrong? So I think that your claim is Hispanics either have nothing to fear or are not afraid, and your evidence is that they are deported and they still come back, that they are still outside your hardware store, and that there are Polish illegal immigrants and you're Polish and you're not afraid. That's the claim in the evidence, right?
No.
No. Okay. What do I got wrong?
Once again, with the leftist politicians, you're confusing legal Hispanic residents with illegal aliens.
Wait. No, I'm talking about Hispanic Americans.
That are legal, that are...
Well, okay, we're going to have to talk about both of these. I believe legal Hispanic Americans and illegal Hispanic immigrants are both afraid. That's my claim. I think your claim is that neither are afraid. Is that right?
The word claim is interesting. What I claim is that the far-left Democrats talked Ronald Reagan into signing an amnesty in 1986. Part of the problem, part of their promise was that they would put in enforcement measures so that anyone who hired an illegal alien would be found guilty of a crime, and they would seal the southern border. They lied. Amnesty was granted to 2.9 million illegals. We now have at least 20 million illegals in this country. They lied. They did not seal the border, and they stripped out the part of the law that would penalize people for hiring illegal aliens, which is why we've got 20 million illegal aliens, many of whom are rapists and murderers, and we shouldn't. It's illegal. And that crime is being treated like a parking ticket when it ought to be treated as a very serious crime. Are Hispanic people who are legal residents of this country nervous and upset that they're going to be rounded up? I know some Hispanic Americans who are not nervous and upset.
Do you know any that are?
No.
You don't know any, how many? I mean, I don't know you personally.
Well, let's assume that there are some, because we had stories recently. There was some manufacturer that was raided. They got 200-300 people and then let go like 100 and something of them that were.
And they said that was for humanitarian reasons, which tells me, unless they're lying outright, which could be, which tells me that they let them go because they had unattended children at home, not because they had grabbed the wrong people.
See, I to me, there has been.
Let me tell you a story. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah, sure. But there's instances. I don't want to think that when the guys come and you're brown, you're going to be standing outside and having to produce papers, and you better have your license on. And papers, please. So to say that they're not, I don't think it's rampant as much as the left would say. Everybody that's brown, you ought to be afraid. I mean, that's exactly what they want to foster. And if you're black, and if you're lesbian, or if you're short, or if they keep dividing and conquering to where the only guys left are the minority of white men that are blamed for everything. So, I understand your point and how the politics is done. But, the things about when you say stuff about the Muslim invasion that are coming here, yeah, it's a government sponsored.
I was born here.
We put a whole bunch of people. We put a whole bunch of these people from foreign countries with this ethnicity and this religion and this philosophy, and we dump them in middle America, and they say, now you guys deal with them.
Well, let Davi talk. What's the solution to 20 million illegal criminals in this country?
I want to go back to the claims that are being made. My claim is that American Hispanics are afraid of being mistreated and having their rights violated by ICE, and undocumented Hispanics are afraid of having their rights violated by ICE. And my claim is that those are reasonable fears.
The people you call undocumented what?
We can say illegal
immigrants?
Hispanics if you want to say. I don't mind.
Aliens.
That's fine.
And if they're afraid of having their rights interrupted or interfered with by ICE, the answer is they don't have any goddamn rights, and they all ought to be deported immediately.
Okay, hang on a second.
Okay, what do you mean they don't have any right to be right? I mean, see, this
How
is
do they have constitutional rights if they're not part of the people?
Ah!
Illegal trespassers.
All right, now you're up against Ernie on this one.
Ernie, can we pause a second? Okay, you're raising your voice, and I'm not raising my voice. And I'm not talking about
and
you,
Ernie. And I told Ernie I'm likely to get upset when somebody tells me that we should grant amnesty to 22 million. What's your answer then?
Okay, my
answer is... To deport them within 4 years, you have to deport 20,000 illegal aliens a day. You think people are nervous because they rounded up 600 illegal aliens in Mississippi and released 300 in the course of a week? What do you think it's going to look like when we're deporting 20,000 illegal aliens a day? And how do you keep them from coming back?
Okay, I was told that I was invited on here to have a reasonable discussion where we wouldn't raise our voices and that we would be allowed.
I'm not hearing anybody yelling. I mean,
he's raising his voice, and you're both cutting me off, and I have still not been able to make my first
Quit complaining and say it.
Also, you're claiming that I'm making claims that I'm not making. I have not said one word about amnesty. I'm making a claim that American Hispanics have a reasonable fear that ICE will violate their rights, and that illegal alien Hispanics have a reasonable fear that ICE will violate their rights. And I want to tell a story that illustrates this. I have two friends. By Kismet, they both contacted me this week. One is
by Kismet, what's that mean?
By coincidence, by some sort of providence or coincidence. Both of these friends contacted me this week concerned because they live in Southern California and they're seeing these sort of suspicionless immigration checkpoints pop up, and they're both documented American citizens, okay? But one of them is Caucasian, and she contacted me and said, I'm afraid because my driver's license expired and I haven't had time because I'm busy to get that resolved. And so I'm afraid that if I end up caught in a traffic loop that goes through one of these immigration checkpoints, I'm going to get stopped, and that's going to be bad. That's a thing that could happen, right? But the consequences of that are she gets a fix-it ticket, maybe there's a fine. The other friend is Hispanic, also American. She calls me, and she says she's concerned. And she says, because I'm concerned, I travel with my birth certificate and a valid passport all of the time. So I want to know what if you think that this Hispanic friend of mine is carrying her birth certificate because she's patriotic or because she's afraid.
All right. Sounds like she's nervous and afraid.
So Hispanic
What's
Americans,
your solution?
legal Hispanic Americans are
How
nervous
afraid
and
do you
afraid.
think people are going to be when we have to deport 20 million people, 20,000 people a day? What do you think that's going to look like?
Okay, so I want to move forward to another claim because it sounds like we agree that people are afraid, and that was what I originally disagreed with you
Very few people are
about.
afraid, especially not the illegal immigrants who come back a fifth and sixth time to commit a murder. How come we're letting them come back a fifth and sixth time? Why isn't this treated as a serious crime?
I have no facts on that issue. Here are some facts that...
No, repeated people that keep coming
Pete
back.
Steinley on the docks in San Francisco was back in this country after being deported a fifth time.
Okay, so if I understand
There's
your
your
claim,
fact.
your claim is American Hispanics have nothing to fear and are not afraid, or no, are afraid maybe, but illegal alien Hispanics are not afraid because they keep coming back.
Right.
Are you saying that no illegal alien Hispanics are afraid, or are you saying just those ones aren't?
Who gives a shit?
I do.
I don't.
Well, then we
What's
disagree
it going
about
to look
that.
you
like
disagree.
when we're deporting 20,000 people a day? Or are you proposing amnesty?
All right, sorry. Ask that again. Wait, I want to make one more thing. This is something else you claimed. You claimed that illegal aliens have no goddamn rights. I don't agree with that claim. Do you have any evidence of that?
They probably have a right to life. They shouldn't be executed without
Do they
trial.
have a right
but they do
against
not have
torture?
rights under the Constitution.
Okay, fine.
If they're not part of the people, then they shouldn't be here.
Okay, now this is where I wanted to make a
go,
point
Arnie.
before. In the all of my lawsuits and everything, and First Amendment and election and who gets to vote and not and all that kind of stuff, I shepherdized a case law. It goes all the way back to Yickwo versus Hopkins, and this was the first 14th Amendment, 13th Amendment. I think it was the first 14th Amendment, the use of the Equal Protection Clause. And what it was is there was a law in San Francisco that said the Chinese are not allowed to operate laundries at night. Ancient Chinese secret laundry not allowed because it competed with somebody else doing laundry. So they had these people working on the railroads during the day. They do laundry at night, and there were some business owners, white man, didn't like the competition. You're not allowed because you're Chinese. Chinese guy, Yickwo versus guy, probably didn't read the memo, doesn't even read English, doesn't care. He went ahead and he's washing clothes, and boom, they arrest him, they put him in jail. They had just passed the 14th Amendment, so they made the argument, look, you can't give equal rights or privileges, you can't give something to somebody and not anybody, else in this kind of who wins and loses and all that. Well, the argument, from the San Francisco was that they're not citizens of the U.S. They don't get no rights. They don't fall under this. That has nothing to do. They're subject to the Emperor of China, and screw them. So then here comes the Supreme Court case, and it comes down and it says, no, we don't recognize citizenry as whether you're a human being with rights or not. Well, this came up in '96 when Buchanan ran for president, and he was, standing there at the Arizona gun show holding up a deer rifle with a scope on it, and he's all Second Amendment, right? So they were going, man, how come safe? Second Amendment is for everyone. The Libertarian Second Amendment caucus, and all you guys aren't supporting Buchanan. He's holding up a gun, color photograph on the front page of Arizona Republic. Gun guys should vote because you're all gun guys. But at the time, Buchanan was saying that, look, if you are not a U.S. citizen, you don't get access to all these goodies and all this kind of stuff. Now, of course, the Libertarian answer is, all this entitlement and stuff shouldn't be there to begin with. I don't care if you're from Appalachia or the hills of whatever, the desert or whatever, taking my money, being a U.S. citizen, taking my money to make me feel any better. So the point was, at the time then, I could see what was coming. And when I started doing my radio show and everything, I bring this up. Do you have rights under the Constitution by being able to fog a mirror? Yeah, I think so. I'd like to hear what Vin has to say. But
I assume those Chinamen were legal residents. If
Well,
they were
that's an
illegal
assumption on your
aliens,
part.
that's a different question.
Look, this is
No. I want to expand on that, because I'm just like, if you breathe in and out, you get you get due process, you get this, you get that. You know somebody has to complain, bitch, whatever. I mean, just stopping somebody on the street because they're brown, that was a big thing. Arpaio got in trouble here for that and so on, and they were profiling and all this other stuff, because that's where that goes. So when you have someone that my son-in-law, Sierra's husband, is Hispanic. I don't think he's had problems. We don't got problems, but if there were problems and all of a sudden he's Hispanic and I got something to say about it. So I'm just like, this Yicwo versus Hopkins thing was the basis that I agree with. I'm like, look, but what happens when you create entitlements and you get, illegal aliens coming in to the United States and they line up for their welfare check, and oh, by the way, this guy said I could vote. I mean, it's a problem. So the problem is not whether you treat everybody equally. It's that we got all this largesse and crap that we did. And nobody wants to address that. They wanted
because I've been listening to that for 30 years. The problem is, the solution is to get rid of the welfare state, and then we can let everybody in. Well, that's, good luck.
Yeah.
How you doing getting rid of the welfare state? Making some good progress? Think you'll accomplish that within the next 6 months? Meantime, all the illegals are here, 22 million at least.
Well, you're not advocating 20,000 people a day get rounded up, or are you?
How do you get rid of them?
I don't know. Do you have to, do a Reagan? Well, that's what they did. I remember. I'm old enough to remember they did amnesty
again,
and then they
lied. They lied when they said they would seal the southern border, so they shut off the option of amnesty.
So when you're at a libertarian function at Freedom Fest, and we're sitting there, Tim and I, I'm looking at Davi here, Tim and I sat there, and they go, who wants to build, not, enforce border laws, who wants to build a wall? And you got hundreds of people doing that. I'm going, whoa, where the hell did that come from?
Reagan's going to be reelected in a landslide. Reagan, yeah. You got me a little confused here. Donald Trump's going to be reelected in a landslide with a mandate to enforce the immigration laws. How do you think he's going to do it if he doesn't deport 20,000 illegals a day?
Well, I don't think he is, but what do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, I think he's probably going to betray us, and there's going to be another amnesty, which means in 20 years we're going to have 300 million illegal aliens in this country who have not read or studied our Constitution, who don't agree with our social mores or our political traditions, and the country will be gone.
Can I express what I think is the difference between an undocumented person and an illegal person? So
if there isn't any, that'll be interesting.
So one of the foundational concepts in the United States is the presumption of innocence. Can we agree on that?
Unless you're brown.
No, I'm
Make
serious.
your point.
Okay, so
don't coach me through a little routine. I'm sick of that crap. Make your point.
That's what the Socratic method is. It's about being
Sniveling
careful
twit.
and
Make
making.
your point.
Excuse me?
Make your point.
What
Go
did
ahead.
you call me? I didn't
You're
hear
a sniveling twit. Make your
So
point.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Just make your point.
Okay.
That makes then doing that is not conducive. Then all right, go ahead.
I'm not saying that illegal immigrant is inaccurate. I'm saying that both of these things exist and that there's a distinction to be made between them. And when we're going to have a practical discussion about what to do about it, we have to make that distinction or we're going to round up innocent people. So can I make this distinction? Because I
Please.
think there's an important one.
Just do it.
If a person is walking on the street in America and they're picked up by ICE, ICE has to afford them the presumption of innocence. Because that's a foundational American value. So they ask them questions, whatever, the papers, please. They ask to see their papers, their documents. And that person says, I'm not carrying any documents. Now, at this point, you have an undocumented person, but you have not established that you have an illegal person. That is a different legal category that the burden is on ICE to prove. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay,
so
so
undocumented should not be used as a euphemism for illegal alien.
I agree, but here's my point: is these are not two completely distinct categories. This is a Venn diagram. This is like all giraffes are mammals, but not all mammals are giraffes. Some illegal immigrants are documented. They're here with green cards. They're here with permits. They have documents, but they're expired, and that makes their presence a crime. but they're documented. Some people are undocumented simply because they haven't presented documents yet. So these are categories that exist that we have to parse out if we're not going to throw innocent people in detention centers.
I agree with you, and I've made this point many times. If you pull me over and I left my driver's license at home, I am, for probably an hour's worth of time, an undocumented driver.
Great.
If the cop is reasonable, he'll follow me home and I can get my wallet and show him the driver's license.
Okay.
That should not be used as a euphemism for an illegal alien.
Okay, great. I'm glad we agree. I'm not trying to use it as a euphemism. I'm trying to use it accurately, as I've just said. So when I say undocumented, I mean a person who hasn't been able to present documents yet. Okay?
Well, all right. But if he can't produce documents because he doesn't have any, he may be an illegal alien.
Sure, but presumption of innocence is a principle in American society, and we should have the presumption of innocence before we call them illegal. Okay. This is why my friend travels with her birth certificate and her passport. She travels with her documents because she's afraid of being caught as an undocumented person, even though she's an American citizen.
As do I.
Okay, great.
And it's too bad that we can't travel the country and open bank accounts and cash checks without an ID. What caused this? The fact that illegal aliens and other criminals are allowed to run around loose, and we all pay the price.
So you described a scenario in which you were pulled over by police and you didn't have your driver's license, and you imagine what happens is the police officer follows you home and you present your documents.
No, it'd be nice if.
And that's great. If it went that well for everyone involved, that would be
fantastic. Actually, that happened to my mother.
I'm sure that happens to millions of people in America. I want to talk about something else that happens. There was a man that was picked up in Michigan by ICE. He didn't have any documents on him, but the catch is that part of the problem with ICE as a bureaucracy is the processing. Like, a lot of what goes on is delayed because there's so much going on. And so this person was not given his phone call, he was not given access to counsel, and so even though he's an American citizen, at the time he was undocumented. And so they deemed that he should be deported, and he was deported, and he died because he's a diabetic and he didn't have access to his medicine. That is also something that happens to people when they're pulled over without a driver's license. Do we agree?
Wait till you see what happens when they have to deport 20,000 people a day.
But we agree that this is a risk that could happen, right? That there is a chance when you're pulled over by police and you don't have a driver's license that something like what happened to this American could happen to other Americans, right?
No, it happened.
Very unusual, but I'll take your word for it that it happened.
It happened here in Arizona. This was they went after Arpaio because he was profiling. They looked like gang member Mexicans on them. We're going to pull him over, and then of course there's some legal defense fund comes and you're profiling. You did it wrong. And they never asked whether they were undocumented or illegal aliens or not. They didn't care. They were the fact that you went over to these guys Hispanic, and of course they'd stop somebody that wasn't, and illegal, and then hilarity ensues. So I'm going, yeah, but this is a side effect and a product of a much larger problem in my mind. Like you say, the presumption of innocence. That's an inconvenient, kind of, we're not dealing with that.
I agree, but I hope we share that value.
But no, I know Vin does, but the thing is that when we had our Freedom Summit in, I think it was like 2004, and we had it in Casa Grande, and we had Frosty Wooldridge defending border and papers, please, and all this stuff, and Bumper Hornberger. Oh yeah, Bumper may run for president as a libertarian. Then that's going to be entertaining. But Bumper is on the other side. Only the government complains about more customers and whatever. What came out of that, and Frosty got to express himself. What came out of that is the solution is everybody has their papers. You're going to have to or you get and it's going to get to where that's not even necessary. It's going to be facial recognition scans.
That doesn't work very well.
Well, yeah, it got, it was like a third of the legislators.
So the Hispanic communities are also nervous about illegal enforcement of illegal alien laws. Is that a reason that we shouldn't enforce the law? And then why did the Cuban-American community basically carry Florida for Trump by voting for him if they're so nervous about, if they hate enforcement of the immigration laws?
Well, they probably had no expectation Hillary would have been any different. I mean, a lot of the ICE bureaucracy was established under Obama. Am I wrong about that?
Many Hispanic Americans have voted for Trump and will continue to because they want the immigration laws enforced.
No. I give Vin that one.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
No, here it's heavily, the people that were Hispanic here legally are big on, you make them because they're giving me a bad and
this goes
competing
back
with
to
and
the
whatever.
Fruit Pickers Union in California, and the fact that what's his name, who founded that agricultural union, would go down to the border and encourage people to do stricter enforcement, because he realized that the importation of illegal alien labor was undercutting his ability to get better wages for his fruit pickers who were legal residents.
Now, Arizona has a big history. Ben's right. This is, the Hispanic community here. While, of course, they like to have their family come up and they don't want to get nailed. But once they get here, they want to close the door behind them.
Sure.
This has been a thing.
But that's not an argument. That's just there are other people that agree with him. I know that.
No, I'm just saying the Hispanic community, when you talk about whether they're fearful or not, hell, a lot of times they're screaming for it to be enforced.
I'm not saying all of them are afraid. I'm saying many of them have legitimate fears.
No,
Can we go back? I want to
to
go back to the police scenario again. So you said if the police officer is reasonable, what he's going to do is he's going to allow you to present your papers. But that hinges on the idea that the police are reasonable, and a lot of people also are afraid that police are less reasonable now than they have been in previous years. Certainly in the last decade, they've gotten incredibly unreasonable. So I want to present a thought experiment. We're going to imagine 100, let's say 200 of these traffic stops, where the question is, how reasonable is the cop going to be? Because that's what your scenario is dependent on. So 100 cops pull over 100 Caucasian people without driver's licenses, and 100 cops pull over 100 Hispanic people without driver's licenses. How reasonable do you think these cops are going to be in these two scenarios? Do you think there's a disparity or not?
Yeah, there's a disparity. I'm not happy about it.
Good.
I'm an old white guy. I fully appreciate that when I get pulled over, I'm treated better than if I was a long-haired hippie in a painted-up VW van, or if I was a black kid.
So
I know that. I'm not happy about it. I don't know what it establishes.
But
it's obvious.
What it establishes is that there are people who have a reasonable fear, but I think it also establishes that your point about Polish illegal immigrants and your being Polish and not being afraid is not a valid argument.
Not a valid argument. You think no Polish illegal immigrants ever get rounded up and deported?
No. I'm sorry. I don't mean to imply that. What I mean is that it is not analogous, that the fear that a Polish person experiences is not analogous to the fear that a Hispanic person experiences.
In America,
Why is that?
not Germany.
Might be because you
because
got a whole lot of illegal Mexicans and Central Americans in Western United States.
Let's go back to the thought experiment. We have 100 people pulled over without a driver's license who are Hispanic. Only this time, let's do 100 people pulled over without a driver's license who are Polish. Do you think that the Polish people are more likely to experience reasonable police officers than the Hispanic people?
Not sure, probably.
So that is precisely what I mean by not analogous. It's not exactly the same fear, it's not exactly the same concerns, and it's not at the same rate. So it's not a good argument to say if it's not happening to Polish people, it's not happening to Hispanic people.
All right, why don't you answer a few questions? We've got 22 million illegals in this country. What's your solution? Amnesty or deport them?
Okay.
Amnesty or deport them, or do you have a third solution?
I'm gonna just accept your facts. I don't know the number, so I'm gonna.
It's more than 22. Let's say 22 million.
We have 22 million undocumented illegal aliens in the United States. What do you do about them? And the goal is to get them back to Mexico or wherever they're from.
To enforce our laws so there are no illegal aliens in this country.
I mean, I guess
you either got to make them legal or you got to enforce the law. One of the other.
I guess I don't have a solution because I don't have a huge problem with that.
You don't have a problem with 22 million illegals in this country.
No.
And when we try to deport them, they come right back.
No, I really don't. I mean, when you want to talk about rapists and murderers and people committing crimes, that's the place where I have a problem with it.
Well, then
but
go
the
to
mere
the website,
act of being present isn't a problem with me.
Go to the website, Illegal Alien Crime Report.
Okay, yeah, illegal aliens commit crimes. I
not
concede.
just Hispanics, but Africans and a lot of other illegal aliens
and
are
Polish
committing
people.
Murders, drunk driving, caused deaths, rapes. Every 3 days.
I was literally nearly killed in a collision with a person who ran because they were likely undocumented. Like, I understand that they commit crimes. The fact that they commit crimes is a concern to me. The fact that they are present is not a concern to me. So when you say
you don't want the laws enforced.
When you say 20,000 people, I don't have any sense from that data which of those I should be concerned about. And I don't necessarily de facto want laws enforced, because often in history and often now, there are laws that are bad, and I don't want bad laws enforced.
Okay, so if you and your brethren who are Democrats in the U.S.
I'm not
Congress
a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat.
don't want the laws enforced, Why don't they just propose repealing all the immigration laws and put it to a vote?
Okay, this is where I want to get in on this.
I don't have the power to do that.
Yeah, no, this is the point that I make. Okay,
They're calling Trump a racist because he's minimally trying to enforce the immigration laws against a few
I
people
call
who have
Trump
committed
racist
multiple
because of the
felonies,
things he's said
but
about
they will
race.
not propose repealing all the immigration laws. Why not?
I don't know. I'm not a Democrat.
Okay, then all right, Ben. This. Let me. I want to
I
get
said
this.
from the beginning.
I want to
I'm
get
not Politico.
I want to
we
get.
shouldn't enforce these laws.
I want to get this point in so that we can. We talk about enforcement of laws. The Obama administration, deported probably 10, 20 times as many people as Trump has deported already. Okay, so the Obama administration, they were like, man, they had the wheel or something, whatever the hell they were doing. You look at the numbers, a lot more there. So then I'm going, all right, they were just deporting or they were not letting in, and then they got into this. No, Trump, you can't do it, and you got to let these people. Then do I detain them? I don't detain them. I got it's concentration camp. So then you got this concentration of undocumented, illegal, whatever on the border. Well, what's the solution? Well, you need to process them. We want to process them. We want to see if they, need political asylum. We want to see if they're being abused. We want to at least ask them. Somebody sit down, look at them, and see if they have MS-13, tattooed on their forehead. So I'm going, let's do that. Nope. They left. The Democrats, they block all increases in funding. They don't want the problem fixed. They need the problem, and they want to have a bunch of people coming in so that they can participate in
they go
whatever
to
the hell
court
they
to
want.
try to keep them from holding these people in humane conditions. They've come here voluntarily to try to process them, so they're released into the communities, into the United States, and they say they're running concentration camps.
Okay, so we're running far afield because
we're not.
This isn't a topic we disagree about, and this isn't the disagreement he and I are having. Because I'm not a Democrat. I don't know what the Democrats' policy is, and this is not the disagreement we're having. We're off the topic.
No. Whether the immigration law should be enforced. Which
Okay,
they
that's
should.
great. Let's do that.
No. Let me finish my point. The point that I'm making is when there is a solution, do we not want to have an Ellis Island? We go through. Do you got tuberculosis and are you a freaking terrorist? And am I allowed to ask the question? Well, if you're going to have a port, if you're going to have an Ellis Island, freaking have the people there to ask the question. No, they don't want it solved. That's my point. Now Trump is going, look, we'll enforce the law.
This is not a disagreement
not gonna do
he
that.
and I are having, though.
No, so I want to make this point because when you talk about solutions, my point is they don't. So whoever it is, Congress, left, right, whatever, they don't want a solution. They don't care about the kids. They're just political fodder.
Okay, let me take this back to claims. Because there
No, let's not. What you've got in Southern California.
If I can't, then I can't have this conversation.
Trying to administer classrooms of 30 kids that speak 20 different languages that have introduced new diseases we haven't seen in this country for 60 years from the third world because there are no health inspections for illegal aliens. And you're saying, oh, I'm not a Democrat, so I don't have to come up with a solution.
No, that's not what I'm saying. So this is why it's important to bring it back to claims. You're saying that I'm claiming things I'm not claiming. The claims I think we're talking about right now, there are two, and I want to know if you agree with them. I want to know if I'm understanding you. One of the claims is the Democrats don't want to solve this problem. Do we agree?
Definitely my claim.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One of your claims is that you don't think the immigration laws should be enforced because having 20 million illegals here is fine. Is that true?
Wait, that might be one. That's
is
the
that
next.
True?
That's
Do
the
I
next,
correctly understand your claim?
That's the next one I want to talk about. In fact, so the second claim. Let's see. Your claim is, I believe, all laws should be enforced.
The immigration laws should be enforced.
Your claim is the immigration laws should be enforced.
If people don't want the laws enforced and they have the control of Congress, they should repeal the laws.
Okay, great.
Instead of accusing other people of racism for enforcing the very laws they have enacted
I'm not
and
accusing,
they don't try to
that's
repeal.
Not my claim. So I want to ignore the claim of whether or not the Democrats want to disagree because we don't disagree about that. You're arguing with somebody who's not present if you're arguing with Democrats. So we don't disagree about that claim. The claim where I think we disagree is should the immigration laws be enforced? So can we make that the topic?
Well, he wants the immigration laws enforced.
Okay, great.
He may not want any other one enforced, but he wants that one.
So here's my claim, and here's why I'm struggling with this claim, with your claim, because it seems premised on a claim that all laws should be enforced. And my claim is that's not true. Not all laws should be enforced. That the burden is on the law to justify itself to me before I'm going to say it should be enforced. So I don't know what the specific immigration laws are we're talking about that you want enforced, and so I can't really say whether or not I think they should or shouldn't be enforced. So if we can talk about specific things, I think that's the way to move forward. Is that okay?
We're losing control of the country if we don't have borders. At some point, you have no country. If you just let everybody in, they don't assimilate very well.
Yeah.
The only reason to
We
have
lose
a
the American
country...
culture and the American political system if we let unlimited number of people who aren't Americans swarm into this country.
Well, I'm not a big fan of how it's being done anyway, but the promise to me in the Declaration of Independence was the purpose of government, defense of individual rights. When it doesn't do that, time to alter or abolish, it's your right, your duty. So for me, I'm going, what's the purpose of government? To defend individual rights. Well, you know, if I got to give up my rights so that they can go around asking everybody for papers, please, I don't feel better. And when they had the Minuteman property that was building the wall on the southern border here, we went down there. It was Naco, Arizona, and Mexico down there. And Donna, in fact, when they were looking for land, she was helping them a little bit, looking forward, and kind of eventually bought this ranch. So we were involved from the beginning of this. Well, what happened, it was a political thing. It was like everything's a psyop. So you go down there and you go up to this metal wall, and it was old steel plates from the helicopter landing Vietnam thing or something that they built this wall. And if you're CNN and you get up to the wall like 3 inches from it, and you look up at the top, and you look to the left into infinity, and you look to the right infinity, you see this wall. You back up 5 feet and you look, you see it ends about a half a mile down there and a half a mile down there. So I'm going, seriously? This is freaking southern border. So we went all the way, Dean Pleasant and I, we drove my Montero, we go down along the wall on the U.S. side to where the wall stopped, and it started a little hill that went up. You walk up to the top of that hill. At the top of the hill, it had a plaque, a monument to the Treaty of Guadalajara or something, and down at the bottom of that hill, less than a couple hundred yards away below it, was where the Minutemen had their wall that they were building around that ranch. Well, it's all about the ranch and the wall, and this is where I came in. We interviewed these guys and so on, and I go, look, I am for, if it's private property, well, then it's up to the private property owner to do whatever. If you got this, kind of government does the border thing, and who decides and what, well, the private property owner had his rear fence, southern fence, on the border with Mexico. Undocumented, illegals, whatever, come across the fence. They go as well. They take stuff. They make it trash, and they go on and through, and he wanted to defend against that. The Minutemen guys, they buy the property. They're going, we're going to defend our private property against trespass. Now, if they were to do it on their east, west, or north fence, they're perfectly within their rights. They can do whatever. On the southern fence, people coming over, Border Patrol, they'd call them, they wouldn't come. If they defended themselves, they get in trouble. And I'm going, whoa, whoa, whoa. What's the purpose of government? Defense of individual rights. Well, you know what? I want to defend my freaking property. It's my property. You are prevented by the government from defending your own property. So I'm like, whoa, man, there's something else going on here. This is weird. Now, another ranch further down, they had a big, just a moment, they had a big giant tower that had a webcam up there, and this is back, man, this is like years ago, this is like high-tech stuff. 24/7 people could watch a FLIR infrared image of people coming across hauling in drugs. They'd call in, Border Patrol don't care. They're paid up. They must have been Epstein guards or something. They don't give a crap, okay? So I'm just going, there's something else going on. So what were they asking for? Same thing Vin was. Look, don't sit there and tell me you got all these guys in Border Patrol and these laws and everything, and you don't give a shit, and our ranches and our people and our stuff, we're suffering because of this.
And you said a key phrase, if you try to defend yourself, you're the one who gets arrested.
That was where I went.
How come you shot the person for coming across your border? That's unnecessary and unjustified use of force.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, and I think that you're right. I think it's valid what you're saying. Your concern is if you allow droves of people to come into your country that are different from you, not about skin. I know this isn't about skin. You gotta understand, I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not making the accusations you're accustomed to. Okay, so if we can just take it down a notch, I'm not making the accusations you're accustomed to. But I think that your concern is if you bring in people who are culturally different, that don't share your values, that they're going to dilute the character of your nation.
So far.
Right? So I have a similar concern. My concern is that if we enforce the laws that we're talking about and we prevent these people from coming into this country, and we do that in too draconian, too authoritarian, too violent a way, that too is going to dilute the character of this country. And when I see people being round up and being forced to prove their innocence, when I see people being deported when they're Americans, when I see people being put in concentration camps without access to counsel or an attorney, to me that is diluting our national culture.
Concentration camps is not a politically loaded term.
I'm sorry. What do you want to call them? I don't know what to call them.
I don't know.
We're providing free food and shelter to people who come here voluntarily.
What do you want
probably
to call
just ought to be thrown out immediately. Because we allow these bogus asylum claims, and the asylum law is a wonderful law, even though it was passed too late. It was basically supposed to deal with the fact that we were ashamed, as we should have been, that Jews coming here from Nazi Germany in the late 30s and early 40s were turned aside, turned back, probably went back to Europe and were killed. We were embarrassed about that, so we said, okay, we need an asylum law for people who are legitimately at risk of death in their home countries to be allowed to come in. And now you've got these crooked United States lawyers operating in Mexico, having these people memorize the right words so they can claim to seek asylum, so that they all end up in some warehouse being fed at our expense. And we're accused of running concentration camps.
I'm sorry. I'll retract that term if that's going to be a distraction.
Detention, whatever.
I'm fine with warehouse. You called them a warehouse. Can we use that? Okay.
That's fine.
So I have a concern that if the way that we're going to enforce this country's immigration policy involves a papers, please culture, a warehousing people without access to an attorney culture, a rounding up people without the presumption of innocence culture, that we are eroding the national character. Do you agree with that?
Not only that, I think the pendulum is going to swing too far in that direction.
Me too.
But what do we do to try to stop that?
Well, first off, we don't push the pendulum.
No, the pendulum is swinging. And I'll tell you where it's going to go. It's going to go too far. I'm not necessarily happy about this. People are fed up with this crap, being lied to by these Democrats saying, oh, we're going to secure the southern border, don't worry about it.
Why do you just say Democrats? God, I got a bunch of Republicans. They're all the same as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, yeah, there are a lot of rhinos, a lot of Republicans do the same thing, and people are going to demand what? Especially given that Kate Steinle sort of had a few of her civil rights removed when she was shot in the back by an illegal alien with a stolen gun in San Francisco, was back for his 6th time. People are going to say, okay, you can be deported once or twice. If you're caught back here in this country the 3rd time, you'll be hanged by the neck until dead the next morning, and the only appeal will be in cases of mistaken identity. And we're going to build 2 fences at the border, 50 yards apart, and put in minefields. I'm not happy about it. That's what they're going to demand. They're sick of being lied to about this
I
crap.
think I've got to the root of the root of the disagreement, and that is that we both share this fear that I have that authoritarianism is going to erode the national character. But for you, the fear of people coming here illegally and committing crimes is greater than the fear of an authoritarian response that erodes the national character. Whereas for me, the fear of the authoritarian response eroding the national character is greater than my fear of illegal aliens. Does that sound accurate?
We're already in the paper-please culture. I'm not very happy about it.
Well,
I can't buy a used book for $2 at the thrift shop using my debit card without showing my government-issued photo ID, and I can't open a bank account without giving a Social Security number that I was guaranteed when it was issued to me was not for use for purposes of identification. Right. You don't need to share it with anybody.
If we're all not happy about papers, please, how do you propose to solve the immigration problem without a papers, please culture?
I don't see how we back out of it. Once you give the government that, I don't see how they give it up.
This is, when we talked about the culture thing, I made this note to myself to make this point. When I was running for Congress one time here in Arizona, it was after the census or something, and they had new districts. So here comes the carpetbaggers from wherever, so-and-so from New York City or whatever. All of a sudden, he puts on a cowboy hat, and he's Arizona now. Mm-hmm. Well, so what was happening in the newspaper, they would send out these questionnaires to the candidates, and one of the questions was, where do you what you consider home. Okay, and the point that they were making was, back home. Well, where's that? Like you say, back home. Oftentimes you're referring.
I was
to,
born here. People tell me to go back where I came from.
No,
all
I
the
mean,
time.
no, you're referring to California as opposed to Atlanta or something.
Yeah.
You say, well, back home. Well, that's where your parents are or something like that. So I'm going, okay, they go, where do you consider home? And that was, a lot of times when we answer these questions as libertarians, we can't even answer it. I mean, we just go, this is not a multiple, your question is effed up like polio. Should you have, porn at public libraries where children can? I go, well, I don't know. I don't think we should have public libraries, so I don't know. This is a trick question, that kind of thing. So what happens when they ask where is home, I wrote a thing on there, it was pretty short, but basically I remember saying something like, it's where my family is and we choose to live where it's freest or something like that. My point is that when you have all of this, you got a choice between a papers, please culture or an overrun. And Frosty Wooldridge, one of the columnists on Freedom's Phoenix, man, for a decade, he has nothing but, man, we got it, because I've been around the world, I bicycled through these countries, and you have no idea what it's like when you have an enormously uneducated agrarian, they lost their job, poor family, if they don't, and maybe they're not as educated, and they come in, it's going to be third world development, oh my God.
Sharia culture is hostile to American values.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the Muslim thing here in a second. I want to touch that.
I don't think we are. We don't have time. I got stuff to do.
People from Somalia in Minnesota, and you end up with one of the Somali cops killing a woman, shooting her because she called police. She's out in her yard in her nightgown. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't trust women. He doesn't think they should be out alone at night. You've imported a foreign culture that doesn't integrate well.
Did he say that, or are you saying that's Somali culture?
His friends and neighbors said that he shouted at the children, he shouted at the women. He was the kind of person who didn't like women in any position of authority, and he's been found guilty of murder.
Okay.
So you understand my point is that if we solve the immigration problem, it's solved. We got facial scan from everybody. We're done. And I'm going, well, you may have solved that, but you created about 5 billion other problems, and that's what my concern is. I see, along with Davi, I'm going, the solution to this. I'm sure there could be a solution. Ask China, there'll be a solution. We'll take care of business. I'm just not sure that would be home to me then.
I don't know that I deserve the last word. Maybe I can get this in and we can let Davi have the last word. But I want to say, I think I was challenged on should the laws be enforced. Obviously, I don't agree with Trump on everything. His war on drugs rhetoric is overly broad. When he's talking about people dying of overdoses of illicit opiates, that's what he really means, I think. But yet he says we got to enforce all the drug laws. Well, of course, I think people at the Peyote Way Church of God should be able to eat peyote in a sacramental way, and people shouldn't be arrested for using drugs in a responsible way. Call them drugs, plants, entheogens, substances that they use to seek holy visions. They shouldn't be put in prison, and yet this drug war encompasses all that shit. So I don't agree with all that stuff, but the reason I'm in favor of most law enforcement, what does it substitute for? No matter how overly draconian it may be, no matter how we may disagree with the way the police enforce the law, it replaces a system where there is no law, therefore you get vigilante law. That's what I'm really opposed to. That's the alternative we have to try to avoid, where people get so fed up with the government lying to them and not doing the job that vigilance committees go around and round up people who they think are illegal aliens, and there's no due process at all. That is the evil alternative we're trying to avoid.
All right, well, that's an argument like we got to have police because what happened? Pirates would take care of themselves or something? So
vigilante law is the alternative to not having any court or police system that the people believe is reliable and equitable and equally enforced.
Well, I'm just wondering if there's going to be vigilantes watching vigilante. Oh, you'll like this, Vin. Davi and I were talking just a couple of days ago, yesterday, day before. I got watchingthewatchers.online. So watching the watchers online. I go, oh, hell yeah, they got that. Boom! Got that. Well, who will police the policemen? Who will watch the watchers? I mean, that's what the ultimate always is, and the justification for government to protect individual rights. But that's not what they do. And I'm going, all right, and you and I know then forever from your books. Hell, we had Sending the Waco Killers was a whole bunch of, this is what they've been doing, and how they've screwed with people. Lost Rights by Jane Bovard. Then, by the time you wrote Ballad of Carl Draga, you're going, there was a difference. Then you've spoken out of freedom summits and so on, and the governor of New Hampshire wanted to ban his book because out of a 700-page book, 16 pages, had about some guy that went postal because he kept screwing with him. And the point that you made is in the first book, the Send in the Waco Killers, which is just about this hog farmer racking his shotgun saying, yeah, you just tell that Reno bitch to send in her Waco Killers. I'm not moving anymore. But the point in that book, and a columnist that covered a lot of these stories, and I learned from Vin, he didn't even remember it, but I remember you going, yeah, you wait 3 weeks, and then, that's where I got it from. And then you find the real story. Well, what happened was you had, in the first book, all these things that government were doing. They were going after groups, they were handling, but then in the next book, you're going, they don't do that anymore. It's kind of at the individual level. It's kind of, you understand, you remember, the point that you made?
Off the canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah.
People who speak out.
And that's what's happening now. And so this is not, if we solve the immigration, it's solved. One, I don't think they want to solve it. Sure as crap not before 2020. I'm sure Trump wants to, but the left, hell no. It's just, and you're right. People are going to be as fed up as they were against the status quo in 2016. Somehow the left believes Democrat, whoever the hell they, them, those are, think that they, I don't know, they're going to offer something better or different.
Well, we have to be careful.
And
we're more on the air in any way. Obviously, I'm not calling for political assassinations. That would be evil and bad. But you would hope that the mob that gets upset enough would go after congressmen and FBI agents instead of their neighbors who are illegal aliens, but they go after the easy targets. In Germany in the 30s, it was Jews. Yeah, it's probably going to be illegal aliens, and I'd rather have a systematic legal solution that has some due process protections than vigilante law, which is where you're going if there's no enforcement of the laws at all.
Yeah, notice the Antifa, the left, and we're justified by any means necessary and punch a MAGA guy in the face of kind of, they're amping it up.
But the way we're enforcing the laws now is depriving people of due process. That's the only way that we've managed to detain all these people in these warehouses is by denying.
Okay, we're up against the clock, and I promised we'd be done at top of the hour. So, Davi, go ahead and give your final thing and
closing remarks.
Yeah. Go.
Okay. So, I don't know if Vin agrees with this, but I think it's sort of at least in the culture that the definition of a nation is borders, language, and culture, right? And so what people are asking for is we need a way to have our language and our culture meet our borders, right? And so when people come in and they don't share our language, I mean, you even said you mentioned kids that speak 20 different languages. Like there's a point at which a culture breaks down. But I think it's important to keep in mind a couple of things about the borders, language, culture thing. One is America is not a nation in the sense of many other nations in the world. It's a nation of nations. That's what e pluribus unum means. So it's a mistake if you think that you have some things that resonate with you as a Polish person, that those Polish cultural things or my German cultural things are going to infuse the entire nation of America. The thing that we mean when we say cultural American is bigger than that. But this is the fear that I have, and this is honestly, I'm speaking not as a politico, I'm speaking kind of as an anthropologist in a sense. The reality is that on average, Hispanic people, they reproduce much faster than America's Caucasian population. And the reality is that in a very real sense, they are the indigenous people of many regions of America, especially the South. And so it may be that the solution is not to enforce your language and your culture to your border, but to move your border to your language and your culture. And it may be that European cultural people need to move further north gradually, not by force, to something more like European climates in this country, because they are the indigenous people of those regions.
Well, that's not going to. People are going to go where they want to go.
I agree, but I'm just saying,
it's
as
a
an
very
anthropologist,
interesting proposal.
I
think it's worth more discussion another time. I'm not necessarily entirely against it. What you're going to find, this is a bit. I mean, I'm smiling a little bit. Many Americans of Hispanic background would not want to live in Arizona if it were part of Mexico.
Maybe, yeah.
They would immediately go to Missouri to be in a free market economy again.
We'd find a different equilibrium for sure. I'm not saying that this is like a fix-all solution. I'm saying as an anthropologist, I don't see very many solutions other than authoritarianism, and I'm grasping at almost anything but authoritarianism.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And the solution to the immigration problem is a shitload more government with guns, and I'm not seeing that as a solution. What Vin's saying is that, hey man, then change the freaking law. Don't sit there and tell me we're a nation of laws, and you do it, which is hard to argue. And as you see this Epstein thing and all this stuff going on, there's no law. It's whatever those want to do when they want to do it, how they want to do it.
They probably, the mass of the deep state culture, political culture in Washington doesn't want what Trump says he wants, which would be pretty sensible. Allow a lot more immigrants in, but have it be merit-based on a fairly systematic way instead of lotteries and, oh, you're somebody's grandma, so we'll let you in. He's offering common sense solutions. That deep state culture doesn't want common sense solutions because, as Ernie says, they don't want the problem solved.
I think I've got something you might even wholeheartedly agree with. Can I propose something?
Real quick, if you want to. We're at the top of the hour.
Suppose instead of a crackdown at the border, instead there was a sort of independent economic zone similar to Hong Kong on the border. So called
maquiladoras.
No, but I'm saying like writ large. Like instead of saying build the wall, what if we said, hey, what if we created this economic zone where Mexicans were allowed to go and trade and farm, and Americans were allowed to go and trade and farm, but that it was separate in the same way that Hong Kong and Beijing is separate. And so it was a system.
2 days ago, but I know what you mean.
I know. I hopefully, I know. Hopefully, America is not going to be as draconian as Beijing. But I mean, what if that was? What if one of these sort of autonomous economic zones was the solution? Because fundamentally, the problem here is that people on one side of the border want to economically engage with people on the other side of the border. And so if we created an economic zone...
Yeah, it was called Naco, Arizona.
Instead of a war.
You go down to Naco where this Minutemen had their thing. There's Naco, Arizona. There's Naco, Mexico. That wall didn't used to be there, and people just went and lived in wherever the hell they wanted. Because on the Mexico side was the industry. It's a big concrete factory there.
So what do you think about that proposal?
Yeah, I think it's worth looking into.
Well, this is what Trump did. You'd be surprised, Davi.
Well, with his USMCA deal... it would be better than NAFTA. It solves some of the problems of people slipping in products from China through Mexico. But, of course, the Democrats won't approve it. Why is that? It would be the unions favor it, the farmers favor it. They don't want solutions.
Okay, this is what Trump did. He goes, I tell you what.
But we just...
You want... Hey,
sorry, I'm sorry.
He goes, you want jobs, you want to solve this problem? I tell you what. Oh, no, it was a friend of mine. It was Richard, my old partner on a pizza restaurant. He goes like this. He says, Ernie, I want to promote this. And we put it up on, look, Richard Bella, Bellah, on Freedom's Phoenix, and it'll come up. And what he did is he said, what if we built the wall on the Mexican side? We said, look, we'll pay for it. You guys get jobs. We'll build this whole freaking wall on the Mexican side, and then we don't have any EPA stuff. We don't have to go through a bunch of permit process. We get the wall. It's all good for you while Mexico's building the wall and enforcing borders on their southern border. But there is going to be a massive wave, I anticipate. You never know. It might be U.S. leaving and going to Mexico. But, there may be a big, giant build the mall. Okay, instead of the wall, build a mall.
Build a border mall. That's what I'm saying.
Well, they call it maquiladoras, and there's a lot of malls. People from the retirement communities here take caravans to Mexico to get dentistry done. I may do it. So I'm just going, it's already, the free market will dominate. I guarantee you. It's always going to, trump, for lack of a better word, anybody else's plan. And I'm just wondering, is there a way to do that? That might be a good idea. Build the mall. There's some art right there, Davi. Knock yourself out, man. That would be good. Would you be for that? Then you're going, put them in the demilitarized zone.
Might help.
Might. All right. Hey, thanks for doing this, Vin. I'm glad I know, it got all, but I think that all of us and the people listening can see it's a complex issue. There are some fundamental things, and I have the same fear I think we all do, is that if you want to get rid of a law, strictly enforce it. And you start doing that, but then what's the solution? You know, you got to change the
The Democrats weren't hypocrites. They wanted to call for repealing all the immigration laws. I think they'd lose about 400 to 10, but they should take the vote. Otherwise, you're going to call people racists for enforcing the law that you guys put in place. That's very interesting. People should go to illegalaliencrimereport.com because the national news doesn't carry this. A lot of these people are evil and they're doing crimes, and we deport them and they come back again. There's something wrong with that.
I'm with you, brother. Thanks for doing this. Davi, good job. Peace, guys.
Take
Thanks,
care.
man.
Bye-bye.
Bye.